What's up, you guys? Michael from the Proper Form Podcast just kicked off season 2. We've got the second episode of season 2. This is actually episode number 13 total of the Proper Form Podcast. Super excited for a good friend, buddy from our church, serves at our church, on staff at our church. We'll dive deeper into that. But Tymarcus Ragland, what's up, You doing all right?
What's going on, man? I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you blacked out today, dude.
And you know, every now and then you just gotta murder out.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of color in my wardrobe. Like, it's neutrals, blacks, whites, tans, grays.
That's it. Yes, it's either black or it's neutrals. Today was one of those. It's like I ain't want to think about it, and so it's just you just put on all black and it matches.
Nice, heck yeah. Or you just got dressed in the dark, and luckily it all came out.
Luckily, it all came out. I wasn't gonna tell nobody that, but maybe you got me.
What time did you wake up today?
Today, 6.
Nice.
6 o'clock.
Yep.
Get the kids ready.
Yep.
Pray a little bit, read a little bit.
There you go. Awesome, dude. Well, I'm excited to dive into this episode with you and for you to be here with us and learn more about you, what you do, where you've been, all of that. So a few things that describe Tymarcus here. He's an apprentice of Jesus. Love that. Married, high school sweetheart, the bride, 2 awesome little kiddos, minister/teacher. I think those go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
If I say this right, lyricist?
Yep.
Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Yes. Okay. Coffee roaster and professional hobbyist.
That's it.
So, man, if we just kind of go line by line, first couple, apprentice of Jesus, married high school sweetheart, 2 kiddos. Shine a little bit more light there.
For sure. Apprentice of Jesus, I know maybe something like, oh, that's an interesting way of saying it. You know, shout out to John Mark Comer. That language comes from him, but I think it captures the desire of like he modeled and embodied a way of living that is meant to be replicated, and so I'm constantly trying to learn how to live and walk and love people and represent him in a way that he carried himself, and so it's like an apprenticeship.
Yep. An ongoing, lifelong apprenticeship.
Yeah. You never reach the peak. You're always climbing. So got to stay hungry with that.
That's so cool. So then, did you always know you wanted to be in ministry? Did it move around? Did your pursuit of your wife kind of navigate that through high school and into college? Like, I'm sure obviously she was very encouraging of it, but what did that look like?
Yeah, man. Excuse me. You cut that out.
Yeah.
No, I knew pretty early in reference to others I've spoken to. It was my junior year of high school. I had a weird, honestly, like kind of crisis of faith moment where I had this teacher. I was doing a dual credit program at the time. I was at Richland College, so they had like a collegiate high school program.
Wow.
And I had this teacher. She was just like straight up atheist, didn't want nothing to do with Christianity, was super weird. Like the class was supposed to be like college prep, and all we did was like watch videos of people debunking Christianity. And then she knew that I was a Christian in the class, so it was like we watched this dude like wax eloquently about why God is impossible. And then she'd be like, "So, Tymarcus, what do you got to say about that?" And here I am, junior high school, barely know my Bible, and I'm like, I don't know, like maybe he's right. And I just remember being real discouraged. And kind of fast forward a bit, we had this like event, this youth event at our church, and I was there, and really kind of at that point, I was deep in my like skepticism. It was like, I don't know, man, maybe this is just all weird. And it was like God met me there in this really weird way. And I remember just being confused. I was talking with my leaders about it and kind of had this moment of just praying and crying out like, God, if you are real, like this is the moment. Like this is the moment to like get me and not lose me. And it was like, is as clear as I've ever, been able to discern. I ain't saying I heard an audible voice from heaven or nothing, but there was like, the best way I could describe it, you watch movies and they do like a flashback.
Yeah.
And it's like you're like going through like a person's memories and you see all these different scenes. It was like one of those moments, like in the middle of me praying, And it just, all these moments of me like encouraging, classmates or talking with somebody about the scriptures and just like the joy and the like purpose and the meaning that I felt in
Yeah.
all those moments. And it was like, boom, all right, that's what I want you to keep doing. And I remember, I think it was like the next week, I came up to the church in the middle of the day and met with my youth pastor. And I was like, so how does somebody do what you do? He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, do you work at the church? Like, do you get paid to do this? And he was like, yeah, what kind of questions? And I was like, I don't know how this works. And I was like, do you go to school for it? And he was like, yes, Bible college. And I was like, all right, where, like, how you do that? Like, I was confused. I didn't know nothing, but I was like, I feel dead on, like, this is what God wants me to do with my life.
Yeah.
And so that was, before I even met her, like, that was something that I knew God had on my heart.
Yeah.
We talked about that. She, like you said, she was on board. And it was just, I don't know, it was just this interesting thing. I think all the way up until then, I thought I was going to be like an electrical engineer or something. That was kind of where I was planning on applying to MIT and UT Austin and all this stuff, and didn't do none of that. I applied to Bible college. I worked at like a summer camp all summer, what you want to call it, ministering to like inner city kids and stuff, and got done with that. Got home on a Friday, washed my clothes on a Saturday, got on a plane on a Sunday, went to the school. Never visited it, didn't know what it was like. Just.
What made you go all the way out there? Like, I mean, obviously there's some schools here in Texas that you could have maybe gone to, right? Like you just freaking flew far away.
I did. Well, I know more about them now. At the time I didn't. So my youth pastor at first he told me, he said, you should go to Criswell. And at the time, I think it was something about like they didn't have something where you could get, you could use FAFSA. And we didn't have bread like that growing up. So it was like, that ain't gonna work. Yeah. So I was like, what's the next option? And he was like, you should go to Moody Bible Institute. And I was like, bet. So I applied there, got accepted. The main campus is in Chicago. And then, but they were full. So they were like, so we're going to send you to our sister campus in Spokane, Washington. Oh. I wasn't great at geography, still not at the time. And so I thought I was going to Washington, D.C. And I was like, bet, whatever. Like,
sounds cool.
Cool. So we signed off. The whole time I get there, I get off the plane, and I asked somebody, I was like, so, like, how do you get to the White House from here? And they was like, well, you got to get back on the plane. And I was like, it's that far? And he was like, yeah, you're in Washington State. And I was like, he was like, Washington, D.C. is on the other side of the country. And I was like, bet. All right, well, we here.
No going back.
My parents were like, you sure you want to stay? I was like, listen, man, I ain't switching up now. Like, we just going to do it.
Put me.
Yeah, so it was weird at first, but.
Yeah. Well, man, if you went, like, to go from, that teacher, that professor you had at that time and kind of the discouragement to then just like a radical 180, 360, 720, like, what do you, I mean, obviously that was God, his plan. 100%. And he could have, everything he does is his plan and what he wants for us. I mean, he could have, not kind of, brought himself to you through that time that you had. But how could you encourage someone or anyone that's kind of just in a phase of life or just a discouraged place where they want to feel the Lord's presence, they're not feeling it, they don't know where to go to try to feel it or find it. I mean, it's a heavy thought or question, but man, like that was obviously a significant moment of your life that's really tracked you to where you are and the impact you've had and continue to have through ministry, through your friends, your family. How could you encourage someone in a space like that?
And that's a great question. Probably two things. One is knowing that God isn't afraid of our doubts. I think there's a way in which we can feel like, I don't know, like the doubt itself or the unsuredness itself, like counts us out. And I'm like, you read through the Psalms, it doesn't take very long for you to start hearing people whose words and prayers are recorded in the Bible who are doubting. and unsure and don't know why God is doing this, and are you like where are you, like how long, like what's happening? And so I think knowing that is like, so then you could talk to God about the doubt, but then also being able to open up and talk with those around you and just let them know how you're feeling. Obviously some trusted individuals that And I think the second thing, something that was really encouraging to me, at least in that time, because I think part of the doubt wasn't just like, is God actually like real? The other part was like, is he really for me? Like, is that something that it seems like everybody else is closer to him than I am? Like, I don't know. I just feel like God's kind of enduring me. And I remember what's the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall find it." And it's like, if you want it, you'll get it. He talks about, those who knock, like the door will be open. That there is this accessibility and this God's eagerness to be with us. And so I think about in that moment where I cried out and was just like, Lord, like reveal yourself to me. And it's like he answered me. And it may not be in a way that it happened for me, but I trust his word, like that for anybody who's in that space, just knowing that like he's been in the business of dealing with doubting human beings for a long time.
Yeah, he can take it. He can withstand it.
Yeah, he's not like, oh no, you don't know if I'm like, he's not that fragile. He can endure it, and he'll meet you.
Yeah, I like what you said too, of just kind of going back to surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And even it's there's so much darkness, of course, in our world, and shame that we all have. And if you want to say maybe categories or compartments of our lives that we don't want to share, we're shameful to share, we're embarrassed to share, but also there's so much fruit in getting it out, speaking to people that like and trust, that care for you, that are for you. And even you relate it to like, we were just talking about, I haven't gone fishing, and I'm going to be 32, probably like 15 years. But now my little boys are fishing. Guess what I'm picking up more? Fishing. Because I want to spend time with them. I want to have quality time with them.
Exactly.
And I don't know. There's so much I don't even know. Like, I don't even know which lures to use, what type of fish are out there, and what I should tie up to attract those fish. But I'm also like, have had different conversations with you, because I know you fish with your little guy, and our boys played soccer together. And so it's like, now it's a cool opportunity for me to connect with you on a different level, and for our boys to connect on a different level, which I hope we can continue to do that. Sure. But I'm now surrounding myself with people that go fishing.
Exactly. Before you know it, all those things that seemed unsure, and I don't know, that it's like, oh, now I got it. It was the same for me. It's like, I didn't know at one point.
Yeah, and I think people can mistake a lot of, like that verse you had shared, the knocking and the door will open. They can mistake that sometimes, or it starts to get into the manifestation space. But then also people can do the opposite, where they just want to sit back and wait. Like, well, when's it going to come to me? When am I going to get my chance? It's like, well, man, God also calls us to get up and move and draw closer to him and go find him. And so, yeah, I know there's a lot there, but it's kind of obviously different for everyone in their journey and their story. But it's pretty cool just how you kind of made that radical shift from like, man, where's God? Is he real? To like all in.
Yeah, I don't realize how, even as I was recounting it just now, it's like, man, like you, one of the few people who kind of pointed that out, like just that stark change of like, I don't even know, I'll go wherever you tell me to go. Which I just think is an evidence of him. But I think I wanted to add one more thing to what you just said was, maybe you're like I don't know, parent or a leader, influence, mentor in somebody's life who's going through something like that. And I think similarly, like giving them the space to kind of like work through that and not.
Yeah.
But I think about my mentors at the time, where I'm like having those conversations, and they were never like, what do you? Oh no, we got like you can't say that. Like there was a space for me to process
Yeah.
and like a trust that like God's he's gonna help bring this out. Obviously, we give guidance and we want to speak life
Of course.
but giving people space to I don't know, not making them feel like nah, you can't think that, you can't ask those questions. That's not that don't help people move along.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this kind of subconscious trust and belief that obviously being a mentor or having a mentor, they've got grayer hair, more grayer hair than you. They've been through the trenches. They've been through similar life phases and trials and tribulations and successes and failures. So
Yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with my mentor yesterday on a drive back from Rockwall and just sharing some light on, some places that Sophie and I are at. And now that I think about it, like he didn't really add a lot of, insight into it. It was just it was an opportunity for me to share and give updates on kind of where we're at. And then for him to kind of chime in and add some guidance or light or like, hey man, keep doing that thing that you said. That's really working for you guys.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from a place in rootedness in Christ and, discernment of wisdom that adds value and points me and points Sophie and I back to the Lord. And there's so much of mentoring is just creating space and opportunity for that processing to just kind of come out and then to be able to add the light and the value on some things. So that's good. Well, man, going into a little bit of that, like how has your ministry journey and teacher journey been as a father and as a guy that works in the church?
I'm gonna take that and swing it in the realm of, man, one of the things for me, and maybe it's the season God has me in and where my kids are, is and I know like a lot of people say it, and I'm trying my best to say it and mean it, but I see my family, like my ministry to my wife and to my kids is like top priority. And that means for anybody that's in I would say a helping profession, have a calling in that way. My wife's a nurse, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, she's a minister just like I am. It's just mine's primarily to the soul, hers primarily to the body. But it's just as taxing and involved. And I'm like, there's a way in which like the responsibility to family can feel like you often can feel like, well, if I'm doing the job good over here, I'm like robbing this side. Or like if I'm doing a job good over here, I'm robbing this side. And I feel like what the Lord has been kind of showing me lately is like, man, the ministry first to my wife and to my kids doesn't actually rob my ministry to the church and to those around me. It's like that is the place from which I'm actually, as I'm forming them, they're forming me, and I'm actually being made better and better equipped for the ministry that He has me to do elsewhere. I think that's why one of the requirements for an elder is that they rightly like order and lead their home. He's like, if you can't even run your home, how are you gonna shepherd and lead God's people? It's like there's something about what happens there that not just makes you like approved for it, but like shapes you so that you're the kind of leader in the church that knows how to be gentle and patient and self-sacrificing and all the things that it takes to, as you know, to be a man in a home. Like it's not easy work. And so that's been interesting navigating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually in our world and as a business owner, entrepreneurs, the hustle, it can be the opposite, where it's like we give so much to our business, to our employees, our people, and we create these systems and communicative platforms to be encouraging and on the same page with our employees and our team to create a successful space in business. And then we don't have any energy and we have disorganization, conflict, tension in the home.
Yeah. And that's and I would argue even in that space, man, it's like it's the same thing as like as you're able to champion and lead. Like I imagine some of your coworkers hearing they're like, oh, so like what you got going doing this weekend? Like you running, you're like, nah, I'm taking my boys fishing. And it's like, oh, okay. Like there's something
Yeah.
teaching and training them. Maybe it's just even in you mentioning that, then they're like, man, like what like when the last time I should take my boys or do this or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's the things that can feel like, and I hate put it that way, but like it can feel like wasted time. And it's
Yeah.
like, nah, this is just as valuable as it is. Because it's not saying that we're gonna slack, right? It's like you got to work
Yeah.
hard, you got to get your stuff done. But it's like just as important as it is for me to knock out those things on my schedule, it's just as
Yeah.
important for me to have, the family time on the schedule,
Yeah.
and that I'm giving those the same energy. It's like whether I'm tired or feeling annoyed when I walk into that business meeting and I got to close the deal, it's like game face, right?
Yep.
And it's like same thing. It's when I get home and I'm tired and I'm annoyed or whatever, it's like, bro, I tell people all the time, it's like, at the church, it's like, man, there's tons of ministers here.
Mm-hmm.
If I fall off, you can find another one. I was like, my kids got one dad.
Mm.
And so it's like, I got to give them, like, they get game face every
Yeah.
single time. And they're like, does that mean I'm perfect and knocking it out? No, but it's like, I need to approach it with that same vigor. And I think that's the key in it. Is like, yeah, am I running after both of those spaces with the same zeal?
That's good. Yeah, I've found, internal tension with myself on, like we've had some crazy weekends back to back. I actually went to College Station this past weekend with my twin sister and her boy, and I only took Jeremiah. We went to the A&M football game. Like we woke up on Saturday, went to jiu-jitsu, and then left and got to A&M around like 4. Like it was literally like a 24-hour trip.
Full day, yeah.
It was, Megan and I don't get to do a lot of stuff like that together. She asked, and I was like, I need to do this. This would be fun. And so took me to the football game, stayed there that night, and then Megan played soccer for Texas A&M. So we went over and saw the team. She saw our coaches and got to talk to the athletes a little bit. But then these next couple of weekends, we got some chill time. And it's like I have this internal subconscious conflict of like, okay, now I need to work on these DIY projects. I need to fix some stuff up at the house that Sylvie's been wanting me to do, the honey-do list. But then also the conflict of like, well, I also want to be present and spend time with the boys. And, as I've worked on some projects in our house, we've redone a lot of our house. I feel like more recently I've come to kind of this like realization and kind of then step back when I'm feeling that stress of God telling me, well, why don't you just invite your boys to do that stuff with you?
I was just about to ask you, like, do you ever invite them to do it with
rather
you?
than, yeah, cause I mean, of course, we're not perfect. Like, there's moments where I'm like, Jeremiah, y'all just go play, like, go
Moving
find
too slow.
treasure. Yeah, like, let me get this done. But also, like, man, there's opportunities where I can teach these boys how to use tools, how to be safe and effective, and moments when we're working with certain tools and utensils on proper education on how to point those and use them, and really like add value to the steps and the processes of things that they can look back and remember. Because I think now it's crazy as Jeremiah has started to ride his bike, Josiah's getting pretty close. They're at ages where I kind of had this epiphany when Jeremiah rode his bike a few months back. Like, man, that is right around 4 years old is really when I start having, I have vivid memory of things,
Yep.
And it's like, wow, not to say that the past 4 years haven't mattered with newborn to now, but it's like, man, they're going to start holding on to a lot of these memories. And when they're 15, 16, going to be like, Dad, I remember when we went fishing, or whatever it might be. So it's like, that adds a little bit more like truth and reality of like, man, I need to really start making memories and being intentional and inviting them into this stuff that we're doing.
Yep. Nah,
dude,
that's so huge. I'm right there with you. Like I'm thinking about the same things because I'm like, bro, those are times where I remember, and it's not just that that's like the first memories, but it's like so much of that is like core memories. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, when I think about my dad, and somebody's like, if you could describe like moments with your dad in like one experience, it's like, man, I remember when I was in kindergarten and he picked me up early from school and he took me fishing. I think I
Wow.
like fishing, but just because of that one day.
Huh.
And it's like we fished a whole bunch of times, but it was something about, it was like, oh, you took off of work. And like I didn't have those words as a kid. But as I think back, I'm like, you took off of work. You took me out of school. Something that's really important. Like I need to go to school. Education that matters and all that. Just so you could spend, it was just me, just so we could spend time together.
Dude.
And like, you know, yeah, like I'm sure you probably think with your boys, like you could just went CNN by yourself and it would have been dope. But it's like, nah, probably, like you came with me.
Yeah, I think a word that I think of that really sums up a lot of just my dad and so many things he did for me and my sisters is just present. And it's just like, oh, and it's, you know, I missed picking up Jeremiah from school yesterday. I did, but then I was late, didn't get home till late Tuesday, so we put him down. And I came home Wednesday morning. I luckily had an opportunity, which I usually don't Wednesday morning. I think that was from the Lord. Got to do breakfast with them. And then I took Jeremiah to school intentionally. And I intentionally then told him, hey, man, I don't get to pick you up today. Mommy's going to get you. Or I think my sister did because her little girl's there. But it's like those little moments really start to hit a little bit harder that you miss because of a work thing. And you start to then realize like, man, I'm not going to do that again next time. That work thing or whatever it might have been wasn't worth it. And not to say that I was choosing a work thing over it. So then just ended up working out. I was finishing up a gym build and just had to do it at that time. And, but it makes me kind of step back a little bit and be like, okay, I'm going to be even more intentional with the way that I'm purposely block out my calendar, make sure I don't miss these days that I'm going to pick him up or whatever it might be. So I hope one day he can look back and say, yeah, my dad was present too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, it's when they start saying it back to you. Because I remember there was a day, you know, I'm roasting coffee or something. And Taj was like, I hate when you roast coffee.
Oh,
Dang. I was like, why? And he was just like, you always in here and like I want to play. And I remember being like, man, like, so do I just need to stop? And I'm like, I can't just stop. Like we gotta figure out something. But it's like you said, being intentional with the time that I do have. It's like then when I tell them like, hey buddy, Dad's I gotta roast some coffee, but it's like afterwards we can do this. It's like, all right. It's almost like if you've been putting coins in a cup, like it's not.
yeah.
You just give an image to it, but it's like you've been putting coins in a cup. It's like in those moments where you do gotta draw out, it's something there. But it's like if I ain't even been putting nothing in, and then I'm also missing those moments, it feels doubly like you ain't there. And it's like,
Sylvie humbles me many times on my moments of like frustration or something with the boys, and I just talk at them rather than like getting down on their level and explaining to them. And I had a moment the other day where Jeremiah did something and I felt myself wanting to just react, and I stopped and I got down and I explained to him why, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, Dad. I was like, is that easy?
right.
Really? Like I gotta but I think as men we can just sometimes be very reactional and hey, don't do that or and it takes more time, it takes more effort. Going back to what you said of showing up and putting in that work of explaining, getting on their level. And so I've definitely been working on that. I do want to touch on these next three things that you shared. You did just kind of give us a little bit of a teaser. You got lyricist, coffee roaster, professional hobbyist. I feel like those all kind of maybe work together, intertwine, cross. You're probably pounding down an awesome coffee that you roasted while you're doing lyricist work, or maybe while you're doing something hobby related, thinking about a lyricist work that came from a hobby. Like
Quite literally, you nailed it. It's like I'm in my garage roasting coffee with my laptop open, fiddling with Logic and writing raps. It's happening. I'll start from the bottom. My wife jokes and calls me a professional hobbyist all the time. She's like, he's always getting into something, and I don't know if it's like what it is, but I think I'm fascinated with the like process of like learning how to. Even if I never get really good at it, but like learning how like the ins and outs of something to the point to where I can appreciate somebody that's really good at it. So like I've always loved music, for example, and so as I've been kind of getting into that more lately, it's like learning exactly what it takes to get like a like well produced, track, like from the instrumentation to the lyrics and like how you cut the lyrics on the beat and
Yep.
all the little intricacies. And then like for that to get to the level to where you're on a billboard or your
Yeah.
chart, like it's like
Yeah.
like man, it takes some craft. It takes, to some extent, I think it takes timing too. Like you could make just the right song at the right time that resonates with people.
Yeah.
I don't know. So like that kind of thing is like
Yeah.
fascinates me. So I'm often like I'll do that with something and then I'll bounce to the other thing and then I'll bounce to the other thing. But coffee and music have seemed to stick
Yeah. Yeah.
over the past bit.
I'm sure there's even maybe kind of like a rhythm, a habitual kind of like just mindset. Like just mindset and kind of process. As I mean, you can maybe talk through it if I'm wrong here, but like roasting the coffee, the smell, getting your mind right. I mean, the intentionality, the thought process,
Somebody
the
told me.
emotion that you're feeling. You can take
Somebody
it.
told me before, they were like, typically if you work with your hands, then you rest with your mind. If you work with your mind, you tend to rest with your hands. And I think where a lot of my work is so like mentally and emotionally taxing, like Saturday morning, I got to roast coffee, and it's like I'll get up 5:30 in the morning and cut music on. I'm in the garage. I can see the sunrise out in the front.
Dope.
And it's just, I mean, at this point, like I've got all the science down, so it's just repetition and almost, in some ways it becomes mindless, but it's a space where I get to, like, my brain can cut off almost. And that is, I mean, selfishly, like I like the coffee, so I get to, I get to sell it, but then some of it's for me, and I love coffee. But then also just like that piece of it is like most of my enjoyment in getting to do it, of just having that time. And then kind of like we talked about before, like I've started to invite Taj into the space a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the days where he can like legitimately like help me get it done.
Like you wake up and like he's already in the garage cranking. Like, where you been, Dad?
The day he figures that out is like he gonna be so excited at first because he gonna be like, oh, I'm doing that, and I'm like, yeah, but now you like got responsibilities, so I'm gonna need you. That's your new Saturday morning chore. Helping Dad.
That's cool. And I love that you said like the mind and the hands, vice versa. I'm sure maybe I've heard that before, why it just hit, but like I think that's in a kind of cool way why I enjoy putting gym equipment together, doing gym builds. Not at all to plug that, but I look back, my mom, I was obsessed with like doing Legos and Bionicles and all that stuff young. At Christmas, I would get it and I would sit there for hours on Christmas Day just putting Legos together. But I loved just the process and like being in the zone of seeing it come to life and knowing exactly what it needed to look like at the end, and then just like putting the pieces together. And a joke I say with like a lot of these gym builds is like, man, I get to just do like adult Legos. Like it's heavier pieces and sketchier. I could lose a finger, but when I'm just present in that moment and knowing what the end product needs to look like, I can do it. And then there's so much like satisfaction and kind of joy along the way. Doing the install the other day, we and my other buddies that were with me, we ordered some pizzas and having some cool conversation and chatting into the night to try to get this done before these clients got home to surprise them. And it's like, man, that's a cool memory. I'm not going to forget that.
Yeah. And there's something, I bet, tell me if you feel this, because I think something, especially in our culture today, that you don't, because our, work can be so divided up, but it's like getting to see the process of like, you see an empty room. So like, here's a picture of what we want to make.
Yeah.
Like doing the work, getting it made, then looking at it and being like, all right, it's done. But then getting to see somebody else enjoy it. So like you watch the person walk into the space and they're like, dang, like, yeah, like, oh, it's just how I wanted it. And, and it's like that satisfaction of, I feel the same way of like roasting coffee.
Yeah.
And like literally the process from it's just a green bean to now it's actually something that you can digest, to selling it to a shop and the barista's making a drink and somebody drinking it and being like, man, your coffee's so good.
Yeah. And the conversation that's around that coffee and the impact. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's few things you get to see the full kind of swing of that. Because, I mean, similarly, it's like even with training, it's like there's a longevity with that. Maybe somebody, they fall off or come back, whatever. It's
100%.
like you don't always get to see the
Yeah.
the fruit of it on the other side. But with that, it's like every time you finish a build, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's done.
For sure. Yeah, I think going back to what you said with the longevity with the training side, I think maybe that's why I've landed into the niche and the clientele base for our training business is even go back to my athletic background, like there was always an end and then you were prepping for the next thing, and it was like just always that hustle, which isn't, people need that. We need things to look forward to. I'm not at all discrediting that. But for me, in regards to like the training space and wanting to create longevity, this pain-free approach, the deeper root is I want to build sustainable, long relationships with people. Like I think that's what God's really revealed to me over these past few years is I'm trying to build this training business is, yes, I don't want at all use that as a crutch to be lazy in the sense of like, oh, well, people just aren't reaching goals. But I want to work with a clientele base that realizes like, man, goals are great, but longevity of life, not having pain, being present and active with my family and my grandkids, that's more important than hitting this 300-pound bench press.
Yes.
And that goal, that's the goal,
Yes.
is a life longevity approach to the training. And that's where that gives me more peace and kind of takes off that pressure of feeling like I need to get these clients to reach all these crazy goals so they keep them satisfied and keep coming back for more and spending money. It's like, man, we're building deep relationships that are adding value, and we respect each other's time and money and appreciate the conversations we have. And going back to like what you said with around the coffee, it's just like the location, the geographical place, and the equipment is what allows that to kind of happen. You know,
for sure.
Super cool. Well, man, touch a little bit more on some of the lyricist stuff, professional hobbies. Like if you could have a goal for even the coffee roasting, like is there a goal? Do you want it to go further? Is it just kind of that continued joy that you get out of it?
Yeah, I think with the coffee, there's a continued joy there. Part of why I've shifted with my view there is I am in a place where I get to do business and partner with people that I know and like I believe in the vision of what they're doing too.
Yeah.
And that some of that was intentional, some of that like was happenstance. But since it's happened, I've like, man, I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm in a position where I can do that.
Cool.
And particularly because I'm pretty like I'm a big fan of creating culture. Shout out Culture Matters.
There you go.
But this opportunity to be able to point people towards things that I think are intentionally building culture in a way. So like I got a buddy, he opened up a bookstore in downtown McKinney. Neighbor Books. Yeah.
What is it again?
Neighbor Books.
Yeah.
And so like my coffee's in there.
Sweet.
And just the opportunity to be able to point people. One of my favorite things about coffee is it connects people. And so, as a barista, it was like the connections that I was able to make with customers and things was huge. And so now I feel like with the platform that the coffee roasting has created, it's like that's almost the way of like connecting people of like, oh, like you can enjoy my coffee at Neighbor Books. This is a great place. They're trying to facilitate, analog, which I'm big at. So it's like they don't have like Wi-Fi for custom. Like you come in and it's like to read, and they'll do story times, and they want people interacting with each other face to face. And I'm just like, that's dope. More people should know about that.
Yeah.
In terms of the lyricist piece, man, it's a whole nother bag. It's like it's therapeutic for me in a lot of ways. I've always been fascinated with music and lyrics and even literature, like reading books. When people are able to articulate something that you felt, like you ever like, it's like you hear a lyric or a line in a song, or you read something in a book and you're like, man, I never knew how to like say that, but like you like that's it. Like that's how I felt, or like that's how I see the situation, or like, oh, that's the perfect way to describe whatever the thing. And like I just feel like music has a very powerful way of doing that. And so much of what that process has been for me over the course of my life, and it's always been very private, was like just being almost like a journal for me of the way I
Yeah.
kind of communicate with God, process
100%.
life.
Yep.
And kind of a turn earlier this year, I lost a family member to suicide, and it was, come to find out, like, he just been wrestling with a lot of depression and anxiety and all kinds of stuff. And like, those are things that are part of my story as well. And another one of my cousins, kind of in the midst of that, kind of challenged me. He's like, man, I think some of the stuff that you create, that God has been giving you, like, you could share that with people, and it would be a blessing. So that's kind of spun me on this new route now of trying to figure out how to share what has always been kind of close to the chest, not really something that I promoted, to like, all right, how do I share that with the world? If I can do that for somebody else, then it's like, it's worth the investment.
And it's crazy to think like how many internal gifts, therapeutic things do we all do that God's kind of knocking like, hey, other people need this. Share it, do it, get it out there. And it doesn't have to be in this like look at me type of way. It's just an offering to others, to connect, to vibe with, to understand, to put context and words, kind of like you described, to a feeling and emotion or a situation they're going through that adds context and vibe. Like, I'm not alone. Other people have gone through this, and God's near.
Yeah, and it's like, even if it's one, man. I had somebody, a couple, tell me that it was a song I made, and they were like, the wife was like, man, I've been married to this person for 20 years, and they've been trying to explain this thing. We're in counseling and all this stuff, and they was like, I listened to that song, and like, they love it. My husband loves it, and I feel like I finally can, like, I get where he's coming from. And he's like, the way, like, you put this line in the song, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, that's what I'm trying to get after. And I was
so
like,
awesome.
And like, if that's all that did, then I'm like, that's enough. That's amazing.
And so cool.
Like you said, we all have that. And maybe you don't. I think something to, maybe for people listening, because I had to fight through some of this, is especially if you're, we all in the business and striving for excellence and, want to be top tier what we do, is like, being excellent doesn't always mean you have to be like at the cutting edge or the forefront of. So like, I might never make a song that charts. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna say I ain't gonna try, but it's like, that doesn't mean that it's not worth sharing. And I'm a big fan of like, start where you are with what you have. And so it's like, maybe to your point, it's like God has pressed something on you. It's like, man, you need to share that. And you're like, oh, I don't know, like, I ain't that good. There's other people better than me. It's like, he gave you something to share, that as good as other people are, they don't got what you got. And so you just be faithful to do with what he gave you, with what you can, and see what he's able to do with it. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I think that kind of brings us up to kind of a conclusion. Last question I always ask is, you've been through a lot, but where you've been, where you're going, and who you are, what's some additional value, one or two things that you think could add some value to the listeners, to the audience, that they could take away and walk away with?
Man, he's actually from a line from one of the songs. It's like, be stingy about your peace. Here's what I mean by that, because that can get muddied in our culture. I feel like there's a selfish way that we can approach that. That's like, life is about me, and I just remove myself from everything negative and kind of bunker in. And it's not that. But what it is, more so like modeling like Jesus, is like, I think it's a picture in Mark 1 where Jesus is ministering and helping a whole bunch of people. And then at one point he dips out, he goes to be alone with the Father to pray. And it's like, people still are in need, but he gets away for a little bit to be with the Father. And then he comes back and he re-enters into ministry. And I think some of us, we retreat to run away and we stay away and we try to, but not to the fault. We distract and all that. It's like, that's not what I'm talking about. But some of us also had a problem where we see a need, so we just stay to like the decay of ourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you got to take care of you so that you can take care of those around you.
Yeah.
It's like you're only going to be so good for your business, so good for your family if you're not in a healthy space.
Yeah.
And so it's like you got to check your own, is my health in order? Is my mind in order? Is my spirit in order?
Yeah.
So that I'm able to feed people from a healthy tree, right?
Yep.
That would be one. And then the second thing is it's okay to try new things and fail.
Yep.
I've tried to do a lot of businessy things before Crown Coffee ever actually worked. But all those times that I tried and it didn't work, I learned something about why it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of life. That's part of any business venture. Is like, man, being able to give it a go. I think that's part of parenting. Is like giving our kids the space to try stuff and fail. And then being able to coach through that, of like get some resilience.
Yeah.
We need that. They need that. And so I think just kind of creating a culture where we, in our homes and in our own lives, that it's like, man, it's okay to set big goals, try something. Maybe it doesn't work, learn from it, try something else.
Of course. Heck yeah.
Yeah, man.
I love it, dude. Well, man, episode number 13, Tymarcus Ragland.
13. Born on January 13th.
Let's go.
It's my episode.
That's what's up, dude. It's insane. Like almost every episode, there's been some sort of like cool correlation like that. Like episode number 7 was with my buddy from high school, Taylor Semenk, and he was number 7 on our football team. And it was some cool stuff. Yeah,
means you're doing something right.
Yeah, and then you just said Vigor, and no one's ever said that word. And our guest we just had before this owns Vigor Active. It's a gym in Fort Worth. I'm dead serious. And like, I need to tell you some more stuff on like that. Maybe there could be some connection there with you guys. So I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
But man, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
You, your family, our friendship, and honestly, just look forward to the growth of it. Man, we're grateful for Citizens Church and the impact it's had on our family, our marriage, and we don't plan on going anywhere else. Like we just feel so loved and cared for there, and just in a similar phase and chapter of life with other people. And not in a rude way at all, but that's not our family. That's not friends that we grew up with. And it's just like we're grateful and excited for the growing chapter and relationships that are continuing to grow and flourish at Citizens. And you guys are a big part of that. So appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks again, guys. Episode number 13, Tymarcus Ragland. Check it out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Thank you guys for listening at the Proper Form Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
Peace.